Hi, I'm Teresa Farney, the food editor at the Gazette in Colorado Springs, and I've run across a really fun recipe that I think you'll like. It's for you cooking spare ribs in a slow cooker, and it has a really interesting ingredient. It has root beer. A can of root beer goes into this recipe. But first, whenever you are selecting the pork ribs, I have a rack of baby back ribs. If the recipe calls for St. Louis style spare ribs, you would be getting a rack that's about this length, but it's going to be wider this direction, and it will be a little fattier. So what you need to do first, you decide whether you want to do the baby back. I'm doing baby back, and they're the smaller ones, and won't have as much fat on it. You need to cut the rack into sections like I have done here. And then I've made a rub that is basically brown sugar. It's got some cayenne pepper in it. Remember, I've mentioned cayenne pepper is very spicy, so you need to be careful. It's straight cayenne pepper, ground. This has salt, of course, and onion powder and a few things like that. But what really sets this recipe off is the root beer. That's where you get that ginger flavor. So I'm going to use some kitchen gloves here because it'll help me not get my hands all dyed up from the stuff. I've taken out about 1/3 of a cup of the rub because that's going to later be added to the remainder of the root beer and to make a sauce. So you just take your spice mixture and sugar, rub it all over the ribs like so. Just be sure you get them covered up real nice. I've already put some rub down on the underneath side. Let's do that. Then you want to put about 1/2 cup of root beer in the bottom of the slow cooker. Then you arrange the chunks of rib into your crock pot of the slow cooker thing. This part is crockery. Oh, these are so good, and they really are super duper easy to make. So there you have all of that done. Now, the only thing that remains to be finished on this, you need to cover it up, put the lid on. Then all you have to do is set this up to cook for about 6 hours. I do this 6 hours on low, and at the end, you'll have a beautiful, nice batch of ribs that are all nice and tender and wonderful. Then you're going to use the remainder of the spice mixture and the can of root beer to boil over in a saucepan, and then you want to thicken it with a little bit of cornstarch and water. And the trick with thickening, so you'll end up with a nice smooth gravy and not a lumpy thing, is to add the cold water to the cornstarch before you add it to the boiling mixture. So you just simply work this together until it gets all nice and smooth. You want to get all the lumps out of there. If you do it the other way around, you're just going to end up with a lumpy mess, and there's no way to get it out unless you maybe strain it. And a cook worth their salt would not want to be straining their sauce or gravy. So here it is nice and smooth, and when you add that to the boiling mixture of the root beer and the remainder of the spices, it makes a wonderful, beautiful glaze. So after 6 hours of cooking in the crock pot, or I say crock pot, it's actually a slow cooker officially, this is what you get. Your ribs are all nice and tender and juicy and ready to be dressed up with a sauce that's made with the remaining part of the root beer that we used initially to start braising these ribs, and it's and part of the spices that are left over from the rub that was used. And it's just really easy to do. You simply use the balance of the root beer that you had started with earlier in the recipe, and then you combine it with the rest of the spices, and then you end up with a nice brown kind of gravy, but it's really delicious. It's nice and spicy, and you can just pour this over the ribs, and it gives them a really nice, beautiful finish. And then you'll have a little bit of extra to add as you eat the ribs. So there you have it. Root beer slow-cooked pork ribs that are absolutely delicious.